Are you ready?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Nikki Sliwak. I am a grad student here for women's lacrosse. I am from Wantagh, New York, and I am a student athlete that suffers from depression and anxiety. So my story starts a little different than most. I lost my dad on 9/11 when I was just 3 years old. Because I was so young, I don't really remember him. I don't remember who he was. And growing up without a dad has affected me way more than I had ever imagined. And I really started to process the death of my dad around middle school, and I would say that's when my depression really started. Um, I didn't really know what it was at the time. I wasn't happy. I was crying all the time, and lacrosse was my only outlet. Sports were my only outlet at the time, and that became an enemy to me at one point. So as I grow up, I use sports as a place to connect with my dad. I know in high school he was such a great teammate, and he was captain, and everyone just loved him. 34 has been a number that my brothers and I have worn our entire life in every sport. My dad wore 34, and we decided to wear it in honor of him. I used it as a motivation. I felt like he was there on the sports fields with me. I felt like I had to be perfect to make him proud. I wasn't reaching perfection because no one can ever reach perfection. And because depression was really taking over my life, I didn't even want to play sports at one point because it was that terrifying to step on the field. I can actually remember one instance. It was a lacrosse game, and there was a group of like 5 dads standing together, and I look over and I just think, well, why isn't my dad there? And I had this sense of jealousy and hate almost because he wasn't standing there. I felt like I had no control over my life. I turned to the processing of I could control what I ate. So that meant I controlled that I didn't eat. And it turned into a very vicious cycle. So a combination of not eating enough and then exercising, running miles after practice, because that was the only thing that made me feel good, was really toxic and really took a toll on my life. At the time in high school, I felt like the whole world was against me. I still remember a coach, one of my high school coaches, were just trying to explain a drill, and I went back at them because I felt attacked. I just wasn't receiving information the way that they were telling it to me. I got to college and I was so excited. I was at the top of my lacrosse game. I was going to University of Maryland and we were number 1. They had just lost in the national championship and everyone was fired up to go. College wasn't everything that I thought it was going to be. And lacrosse didn't go as I wanted it to. I wasn't playing my best, and I fell into a really deep depression. I was riding the bench that I've never, ever been on the bench in my entire life. I, was staying up all night. It got to a point where I was just having all these episodes that my mom was like, hey, this runs in our family. And also she was the first one to really identify that it was a form of PTSD from losing my dad. And as I got older, I started to realize that it isn't normal to feel like this, but it's okay, and there's things and there's steps that you can do to help yourself. I decided to go on an antidepressant, and that's when I really started to identify what it was. I identified the depression, I identified the anxiety, I identified the eating disorder, and kind of really put it all into perspective. Depression is something that a lot of people don't talk about, but yet I see so many people deal with it. It's like just swept under the rug a lot of times. My mom said this to me once: someone who's diabetic, they take their insulin because they have to. You need to take a pill, or you need to do this to help your mental health. What's the difference? And I felt like when I was able to come out and tell the people around me and say it to them, I felt like a a release out of my body. Like I just like something was lifted off my shoulders. And it was so weird just saying it out loud made the world of a difference. I've seen people struggle and I've seen teammates struggle with the same exact thing. You're fighting these battles inside your head with the anxiety and with depression, and that takes so much more strength than just going through the motions of each day. You know, my 4 years at Maryland didn't go exactly the way I wanted it to. I don't regret a second from it. I got a chance here to rewrite the ending to my story the way I wanted it to be. And for that, I am so grateful. If one person could read my story, if one person can hear me and know what I went through, and for them not to feel alone or for them to get help because I was able to do that, then that was more than enough for me. If you're having these feelings, if you're sad, it's okay to feel what you're feeling and own it. It makes a world of a difference when you can speak about it with someone else. And I think it's something not to be scared of, but it's something to truly embrace.